the date today? 25th of March.
Yeah.
Well, just tell me, if I got this hand here.
25th, day 2.
So,
In Abu Dhabi.
I hope Alex comes back by 11 o'clock. My name is Paul Cook from Planet, and I welcome you to Event Camp Middle East 2014, Day 2. Day 1, that was yesterday. That was the 24th of March. Today is the 25th of March, and here we are with another set of speakers all raring to go to share their latest thinking about what could be different in the events industry. They're going to share some expertise, have some different ways of looking at the industry for the benefit of everybody. And that's really what an event camp is all about. The event camp is a volunteer-led. Is it a volunteer-led body? No, actually, event camps are put on by volunteers that want to try something new for the events industry as a whole. So they get together, and in this particular edition of Event Camp Middle East 2014, we have a skeleton crew. There's myself as your host for the rest of today. I did a bit of hosting yesterday as well, hosting for the live audience here and the live audience online as well, delegates rather, not audience, because we want you to participate. I have Martin Shefwoodley from Be There Global, and basically he is doing all the web streaming, making sure that all of the content goes outside of the room. And he's sitting next to Anton from Newman and Muller, and they've been providing the audio-visual for us all yesterday and again all today. And without them, we wouldn't be able to make this event camp work. And behind the scenes, we have Josh Dry and Mary Claire Andrews, who are basically, they've been doing a lot of promotion behind the scenes, and also they've created an event app specifically for event camp. So this is where you can go and find all the latest information on the speakers. You can find out their bios, you can score them, you can message them, you can do all of that. And basically you've got everything about Event Camp Middle East 2014 in the one spot. The furniture around me has been provided by Catertainment, and they've provided all of these beanbags, these lanterns, and some other items that give us a real camp in the middle of the desert feel. Because this Middle Eastern edition is coming to you live from GIBTM, which is one of the Reed travel exhibition shows. And this is our second time of being here. So it's the 8th year that Reed have been here with GIBTM, but it's our second year. They asked us to come back after 2013, and that was just fabulous. So we've been invited back a second time and delighted to be here. They provided the space, and their team have been brilliant in terms of marketing and helping make this a success. So a big shout out to them, to Abby Cannons, to Susanna Lee, and to all of the other people behind the working of this. And so yeah, yesterday, a little bit about yesterday, we had Josh Dry. He was speaking to us about event apps in the morning. He started off, he was over in New Zealand. Then we switched to Shauna McKinley, who was over in Vancouver, Canada, and she was talking about sustainability and hybrid event intersections. Where do those two meet? From there, we went from Canada to London, and we had a Training Your Virtual Speaker with Alan Stevens, and we did a question and answer session, so I interviewed him on screen, and we had a lot of fun there. Bearing in mind that he couldn't see us, that was a really interesting part of yesterday. Then we moved from Alan, and we went across to Mike Clanton, who was talking about connectivity. So if you don't have the connectivity right in your venue, in your space, are the delegates going to be able to load up their appliances in the right way? Are they going to get connected? Are they going to be upset if they cannot get that connection? So those were some of the people that we had on. And then we finally finished with Kirsha Woodgate from Mexia Communications. And basically, she was talking about how to market your online or your hybrid event. What are the techniques? What are some of the secrets that you need to be aware of that are really going to make a difference? Because do you apply the same techniques as for a traditional event or not? So we put those questions to her. And we're going to have this available. If you missed yesterday, then you will be able to catch this in the on-demand area, and we will be letting you have details of that a little bit later on. So the best way to get involved in an event camp is to join in the conversation. You may agree or disagree with some of the statements, and that's absolutely fine, but we want your opinion. Our speakers have been asked to be provocative, and they have been doing that yesterday, and they will do that again today as well. We've got some speakers today. Tim Chapman is our first speaker on, our first remote speaker actually. He's coming in from Australia. And then later we have Graham Jones from the UK. We have Brand Kruger from the States. And then we finish with Ian Brody also from the UK. So all of those speakers are coming in remotely. There's only one person I'm going to be interviewing live in a few moments' time, and that will be Dr. Alex Kenyon. So we're going to have a chat shortly about the future of events. So a lot for you to take on board, a lot of good stuff that's going on. But do join us. Join the Twitter stream. Use the hashtag #ECME14, and you can post up your comments. You can say hello. I know where I am. I'm in Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre right now, and outside it is gorgeous. Well, like every day here, actually, it's gorgeous blue sky, and it is really, really nice in terms of the temperature. We are late 20s, early 30 degrees temperature. So that's, you can see me, you know where I am. So where are you? I'd like to know where you are. So why don't you just take a photo or send in a tweet of where you are, because it would be good to know how far this message, this hybrid event is spreading to. So you can follow on Twitter. You can go to the Facebook page of Event Camp Middle East, and you can go in there. You can like, and you can also share things. If you use the hashtag, then also anything that you post on Instagram will be picked up. We have Megan McLeod doing the social media curation. She's doing a great job on that. And if you go to if you want other people to come and enjoy this particular experience, then the best thing to do is to go to the viewing page, which is bit.ly and then /event-CME14. So if you go there and share that, that will also be sharing the love of this event camp. So again, all run by volunteers. A little bit of the history of event camps. They came to being in 2009 when people in the industry just got together and decided they wanted to do something different. So what did they want to change? And they got a bit fed up with some of the things that were going on, and they thought, well, why don't we just get together and share some ideas? And that's where it came from. Since then, since 2009, we've had event camps in the States, in Canada, in Australia, and of course here in the Middle East. Oh, and I almost forgot one. How could I forget one? That's crazy of me, I know, because it was one that I co-produced in the UK back in September 2011 with Ruud Janssen, Lindsay Rosenthal, and Janice Fryatt. So four of us, we basically produced the European version. And for that one, we had a slightly different experience from today, and that we had pods of people. We had little clusters of people that were in Belgium, in Poland, and in Sweden. And we had one in a UK location that was in a different part of the UK. So we tried the clusters, and then we had an online audience over in the States and Canada and Europe. So that worked pretty well. We were trying things, and that is the essence of event camp. Event camp is all about experimenting. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. But if we don't have a place where we can go to test, to try out new things, how are we going to move our industry forward? I don't know how we would do that unless we have some space to be able to say, yeah, you know what, it's not perfect, but there are some techniques that we can take away that we can actually use. And that's why I love being involved in event camps. I've been involved now in a number of these over the years, and each time is a different experience. And we do find that some of the things that come out are then being used with our clients, and really they are fulfilling our idea of just progressing the industry forward. We want to take the industry forward, so how can we do that? This particular event camp, this is the questioning and sustainable edition, because questioning in terms of what some of the speakers that are coming in, what do they really think about some of these issues that we have, and also sustainable, because over the 2 days, the only speaker that I have with me is Dr. Alex Kenyon, and the other speakers, they're all remote. They're all coming in. I don't like the word remote, by the way, because they do want to be with us. They want to engage and belong. But they are coming in from across the globe, and we've got 9 of those speakers across the 2 days. And we've never tried this before. And it worked pretty well yesterday. We did have a few technical glitches, but Martin and the team managed to sort them out. And that was just fantastic. And it's really to bring in a remote speaker that doesn't have to leave their office, doesn't have to leave their home, and can deliver high quality content is something that I think is going to be one of the things that we see more and more of as we go into the future and we try these events. It is a little different when you see speakers on the screen and you can't directly talk to them, but you can do that through Q&A. It's a different experience, but it's part of what's coming on in our events landscape right now. So I'm getting some nods from the audience here, and I know that it's something that I'm really interested in. I think if we can get speakers that are remote to be able to engage just as well as they could live, then I think we will have a really interesting experience for all of our delegates, whether they happen to be in the room or whether they happen to be joining at a later date. And I do think that we're going to see much more in the way of on-demand viewing. I think we have to capture content. I'm a big believer in that. And I'm also a big believer in that the event doesn't start and finish across the 2 days. Here we are at GIBTM. We've got the 2 days of content here, but it's not going to end there, because we can push this out and keep on having conversations around some of the good things that the speakers have been discussing. And maybe there's some violent disagreements over what our speakers have come up with. But that's good. That keeps the conversation going so that we're not losing content into the atmosphere, lost forever. Why would we do that? Do we not want to build our communities through our content? And those are 2 of the subjects that we're going to look at a little later on with Ian Brodie and also Graham Jones, who are coming across later. So where we are right now, live Abu Dhabi, GIBTM, that's where we are. I'm surrounded by trade stores. I've got the technology village right next to me. And we are, there's a big buzz in the show. It's great to see. So again, our thanks to GIBTM for asking us to be here. And I can see that Dr. Alex Kenyon is actually in our audience. And I'm going to invite her up. I think we're almost on the time to go. I'm getting nods from the rest of the audience as well. So why don't you come and join me up here, and then we can have a conversation about the future of events. What I'd like you to do, though, is I'd like you to tweet in your questions about the future of events. What do you see? What are some of the things that you think are going to have the big impact? Because we want to have a discussion right here, right now. And I know there's been a lot of research about where we are in some events, but what's your opinion? So use that hashtag, #ECME14, send in your questions, or just bring them to Megan. Megan's been running around. She's been our mic runner over yesterday, just making sure that people are engaged and involved and get their viewpoints across as well. So do have your questions at the ready. And I think, Alex, would you like to come and join me up here? So, welcome, Dr. Alex Kenyon.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, we're being asked to just move around, very slightly. That's right. We're kind of together on this, so that's all good. So, if Martin is happy at the back, he is. That's cool. it's so good when you have to work in concert with these people, I think, because otherwise you just don't get that experience that would be really fulfilling otherwise. So, thank you, Martin. Alex, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and also tell me a little bit about some of the research that you've been doing. I know you've got a very special offer for for the delegates if they get to you within a certain time frame.
Yes.
So let's start there, and then we will have a chat, and we'll pick on the audience. Well, we won't pick on them, but we're volunteer. You know, if they've got questions about the future of events, that'll be fabulous. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pass to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. So my name's Dr. Alexandra Kenyon, and I'm from Leeds Metropolitan University. And I've been doing some research with a colleague of mine, Jackie Mulligan, and other people from our team about the future of events. We were commissioned by MPI, and we were actually sponsored by PSAV, Jamara, and Omni Hotels. And I think the big question on everybody's lips, really, well, what are the big issues that's going to affect our industry in the future? And it's a question that maybe you can tweet your answer or click an answer in your mind now. There's something that you think is going to be a big issue in the future. What would it be?
So what's your
the big one?
What's your big issue? Look at this, they're typing on their pads already, so that's fantastic. So the question, and you guys at home and in your office, what is the big issue that you see coming up? All we want to know is, what is it, a word? Do you just want a
just
word?
one word.
Just one word. That's all Alex is after, just one word.
What will affect you the most? What would you say? Okay, prices.
So price is coming up.
Yeah, budgets, price. More for less. Okay. Extra value. Good value. Yeah. 3 words is fine. More for less. That's fine. That's fine. Well, the research that we did, we asked the very same question of everybody. What big issues do you think will happen to you in the future? And we went outside our industry as well as inside our industry, because sometimes we're quite focused, aren't we? We're focused people. We want to know what's going on. We want to know what the future might bring, but we tend to be a bit narrow, perhaps, in our thinking. So we went outside our industry as well and spoke to population experts, social media experts, gaming technologists, economists, you name it. We had a chat with all of them. And I was chatting with people around the world. Sometimes they would be in America, so I'm in my pajamas because it's daytime there, but I'm supposed to be asleep. But nevertheless, it's important to get the views from outside our industry. So when we did that and we looked at it in what the meetings industry think the future will be, it was economics and technology. Those were the big things that were going to happen in the future. Nevertheless, when we went outside our industry, it was a different thing. They said people. People will make decisions of whether they come or they won't come. Economics was obviously still important, because there's been a world economic blip, really, I guess. But it affected us a lot. Now, it didn't affect every single country in the world. However, because we're dealing with multinational companies, then obviously everybody was affected in some way or another because of the economic crisis that was occurring. However, there was a lot more to it than that. Businesses in the future will have to think about keeping people safe and secure, because if people are afraid to step out of their own environment, their own country, then that's not good for us in our businesses. And there's political instability, there's massive climate changes going on, there's social changes, there's cultural changes, and when you have all of these changes, it's actually already been known, even though we're only in 2014, that this decade is the turbulent teens, because there's turbulence everywhere in terms of geopolitics, social changes, etc., etc. So these are the things that we've been discussing and investigating.
The turbulent teens.
The turbulent teens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a great little soundbite for all of those people on social media.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
brilliant.
They love that kind of thing. Yes. Yeah, and one of the things which we have actually found also is, because of all of this turbulence, there's somebody like my mother. You imagine my mother, she thinks, Alex, where are you going? Are you going on your own?
She could be watching right now.
She could be watching right now, yes. Are you going on your own? How are you going to get from the airport to the hotel? Who's going to look after you when you're there? Who's going to take you from the hotel then to the convention centre? Don't spend anything online. Don't use your Visa card because somebody will steal your identity.
Yep.
And do you know where the British Embassy is, in case you get lost? These are the questions my mum asks me all the time. But what she actually is my conscience. Because everybody may be thinking like this. Some people are more risk takers than others. Some people are very cautious. And these were the things that we were finding in our research, that there's this extreme. But as business people in the events industry, we have to make sure that people will feel safe, they will know where to go, they will already be registered with their embassy because we know where everybody's coming from, so we should have some risk assessment documents with the embassies ready in case, you know, this person gets lost, can't find something, loses their passport, anything like that. Just gentle things like that are important.
All about the people.
Yeah, so these are the things. The people will come or they won't come, depending if they feel safe.
Okay, so we have issues on price.
Okay.
And then we have issues on people. So,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
It's becoming even trickier for people in the events world.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that is probably important, it's like what we're doing right now. Many people are going to live in urban cities. It's called the borderless countries now, because we don't just stay within our own country. We don't just stay in our own cities. There will be a generation in the future that will never have a desk permanent in an office of their own. There'll be a generation of hot deskers or home workers, because there'll be organisations where 80% of their workforce could well be sat at home and working from their computers in that way. I'm lucky, I get a couple of days a week, often working at home if I'm doing a big research project. And I need that space and quiet sometimes, because how much I love my colleagues and my friends, I do not want them necessarily sort of just saying, Alex, can you just do? So it's really good to take that moment aside. But that's not just me. There are other people that work permanently at home. So what do we do with a virtual meeting such as this to engage with an organisation that's a multinational organisation that has 80% of their workforce in different places? And obviously the first question, which was something that where Paul and I were talking about this morning, is what do we do with the time zone situation?
Yeah, the time zone's been a bit of a challenge for this.
It does. It has. And my husband and I were watching a film just the other day, and it was, I can't remember the name of the film because we chatted so much about this one particular issue, which was Zulu time. When you're in a submarine, which was what the film was about, you have to have a Zulu time. And the Zulu time is the same time, and it just tracks no matter where you are. So you never go through a time zone in a submarine, which you might do a lot when you're traveling for several months and so on. So there's got to be something about how do we decide what time we are going to meet, what is useful for everybody, how can everybody be engaged, and how do we tell them about this? Just the other day also, it sounds as though we watch TV a lot, actually. But maybe we just noticed
information gathering.
It was the football was on, so it was. I can't remember now which. It was Manchester United versus somebody. Please forgive me, all Manchester United fans around the world. But they had a great score in the end. You know, it was 3-0, so they did really, really well. But the thing was, we were watching. Sorry. West Ham, thank you very much.
West Ham, Manchester United, right.
So, but whilst we were watching it, because we wanted to see when it was on the TV, and so we were trying to work out, well, it's 4 hours in England, and now it's, this. However, on the television screen, it said Abu Dhabi time, it's on at this time, GMT, this one. And so we thought then, that should happen more often, because it's really useful for us in meetings and events that if we're going to do virtual meetings like this, then we couldn't possibly do that if we were a multinational company and we've got satellite offices in 10 countries around the world, because your screen would be like this and it would go on forever. But nevertheless, there perhaps ought to be some sort of like standard time in the future that we could all work with, because that does cause a little bit of chaos. So I quite fancy the Zulu time.
Oh, I think hearing about that would have been perfect for this event, because yesterday we moved, our first speaker was in New Zealand, So we had Josh from New Zealand first thing in the morning, which for him was the end of his Monday, and then we switched across to Vancouver, and we had a difference of 11 hours behind. Well, there was 20-hour time difference, and we were in the middle here in Abu Dhabi. So when I was discussing this with Martin, what did we put on the viewing page for people looking at the event, when to join, and we came to the conclusion that we could only, I decided to put down just Abu Dhabi time, get everybody to come to that, because if I put up 3 or 4 others, States, Europe, UK, where do you end? Like you were saying, you'd be all across that page.
Yes.
So I'd love Zulu time and make these events a lot easier.
Yes, well, we'd know where we were working to. The other interesting thing also that came out from our research was about cultural differences, and naturally that's always a big issue. And we know how effective on our industry the BRIC countries, such as the Brazil, Russia, and China, and how important those countries have been on our businesses, because it's exciting that new people are coming to our events, but it's also exciting there's new opportunities for destinations elsewhere. Now, the next generation of the superpowers are going to be, Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey. Those are the next superpowers. And the reason why they're going to be the next superpowers is they have a fantastic internal demographics, because there are more people, they've got lots of people in their country already, but there's more people being born in that country, and there's therefore more people working than not working, unlike some of the Western countries where, because of the low fertility and the low mortality rates, then we have more people not working than working. So therefore, these are going to be the superpowers of the future, because they will have a higher GDP in the future, and it's not going to be that long.
So I was just going to ask, how long are you looking for? I think that spelled mint. Did that spell mint?
Yes,
Was that right?
Mint's the
so
new brick.
we're moving from brick to mint.
Yeah.
But when you say in the future they're going to be coming through, what is that? 10 years time, 20 years time?
Well, normally the statistics tend to look towards 2050 on the United Nations statistics. In terms of over the last 50 years, the older population has tripled 3 times. And in the next 50 years, it's going to triple again. So that means by 2050, there will be more over 60s in the world than there are under 16s. And that has a big influence on the world's population, because generations want different things. They certainly have different needs here in our industry, for definite. But they have different ways of communicating. They have different ways of, just different needs here at events and elsewhere. So we have to kind of think about the older population a lot more, because once you get to the age of 50, apparently...
when you get to 50...
when you get to 50, then your spend opportunities goes up exponentially in comparison with where it has been, because there's changes in your family commitments, there's changes in your financial commitments, and your sort of hopefully your employment is really good and it's a really good peak, and so all of those things. So your actual value to businesses goes up exponentially, and so that's great. Yeah. So it's all going to happen over the next 50 years. by 2050.
By 2050. So
this enormous change.
36 years time.
So it's not long. It's not long.
I mean, it can be quite tricky, can't it, for event planners to be able to deal with different cultures in the audience, and how that might affect their ability to become engaged in certain activities, but also all those different age ranges now. If we've got about 4 different generations all in the same place, then how do we cope with that as well? I mean, any ideas from the audience? Any experiences of any kind of, do we just target specifically, do we find events are going to be just nailed down to this is a certain age range, this is a certain culture, or do you think that we are going to get more and more widespread in terms of mixing everybody together across, and those will become normal events? Or?
Well, by 2050, based on the numbering, if you're keeping up with the numbering situation, there will be 5 generations in one room. So therefore we've got the baby boomers, we've got Generation X, Generation Y, millennials, and it won't be long before we have the next whatever we call them.
Yeah.
Whether they are Generation X or Z rather, or whether they're going to be called, I want to call them thumbers, because they're so busy.
Thumbers.
Thumbers, the
Right,
thumbing
okay.
generation, because
Right.
we're also busy on our phones in that way. But we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. So if you've got 5 generations in one room, you have to satisfy the needs of all of those generations, and that can be quite difficult. The Generation Y are called "What's in it for me" generation. And they have needs at
Yeah.
conferences like ours here today. And they want concise content that's specific and personalised to them.
Yeah.
They look at their phone every 9 minutes, not whilst they're sleeping, but I'll bet you they do look if they happen to wake up in the middle of the night and want to drink
Every
water.
9
They
minutes,
will be
yeah.
looking. And so these are the things that they are interested in. They want some personal engagement, but not quite as much as the older generations, the Generation X, which are a little bit more interested in co-creation with experts. This is what our research has found.
Right.
Getting involved. They've got that need for, to look somebody in the eye and feel comfortable with that. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, Paul, was about having people remotely.
Yeah.
And the words that we kind of hear are, to go forward, you have to think back. Once upon a time, when somebody phoned you and you were at a social engagement, like at a restaurant, or you were maybe just having a coffee with somebody, you would step away from the table and answer the phone. Okay? And you would just, sorry, I just need to get the phone,
Yeah.
and you go away. It's not like that now. It's all about people will join the conversation in which you're in from afar. So they join
Yeah.
the conversation. They're not remote anymore. They just join the conversation. So they're either sending you a photograph, sending you a text, and you all share this as
Yeah.
well. And if you have a phone call, they just join that. You put them on loudspeaker and everybody's involved. So I kind of wonder that they will ever be remote people.
Yeah.
There will always be people that are joining the conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the benefit of the online folk, because we didn't have a mic for Megan, she was just saying. She was just saying that social media has had a huge impact on the way that events are conducted, marketed, what's going on in events. I mean, Megan was basically making the point that we've got people in the audience right now that are tweeting away and doing things, and I know they're tweeting because I can see it. I can see it on the iPad up here. But interesting to your point of the people want content specifically for them. There are speakers I know that get really upset if anybody is doing what you guys are doing. They want you to be absolutely focused on the task of learning whatever the information is. The older generation, well, maybe some of the oldest. I can't say that though, because some speakers are really like Alan Stevens yesterday. He's great. He does all of this stuff. He tweets out, but it's interesting when you have speakers that are believing that just because people are on their devices, they're not taking anything on board. I think that's another kind of thing to come over, because if you took the devices away and you said, right, there's a notebook and there's a pencil, we wouldn't mind, the speaker probably wouldn't mind them scribbling, but they might be doing their shopping list. So it's interesting how a device becomes almost like an obstacle and also like a great change thing. But in our minds, we're not quite there, are we?
No.
Do you want the microphone?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's ridiculous as well if you think about this. Life is on the mobile. And when you really think about this, we talk about big data and how important big data is to us. The big data comes from your phone. So if you imagine your phone is having deep conversations with a multiple of computers somewhere, because there's somebody in the back office doing the analytics and checking what's being said. So these phones here and yours at home are having deep conversations with a computer all over the world. And because of these deep conversations, these computers know who you are, they know how old you are, They know if you're male or female. They know where your friends are. They know you're here, but they know where you live. They know what music you like. They know how you feel because you say so in your tweets and other things. So they'll be looking at all of these things.
Yeah.
So your phone knows a lot more about you than your friends do. Because your friends know you as a friend, your business colleagues know you as a business person, and maybe the two do not swap quite so much. But your mobile phone tells these computers, wherever they are in the world, deep conversations, and they know an awful lot about you. And it's important as event planners to embrace this and hire people that do the analytics. And a really lovely example is KLM. KLM had a follower on Twitter.
Yeah.
The lady was a runner, so she'd be saying, I'm going out running, I'm doing my running, and I'm whatever. And then they realised, because of her social engagement online, that she was going to Rome on KLM. And she was going to run in Rome and run around the city. So they have what's called a surprise campaign. So KLM somewhere have got the deep data about this one person. They know she runs, they know she's going to Rome, they know that she's on the plane, they know what plane she's on.
That sounds
And
scary
so-
to me. It sounds very scary.
So they presented her with a wristband to monitor. You're running. I don't know it runs, so I don't know what it monitors, but I'm sure it's something to do with heart rate and calories or something along those lines. And she was presented that just because of her social media activity.
Yeah.
Can we do that in the events industry? Should we do that? Will people share that much with us? They do already. But some people are a little afraid about the security of data. Remember my mother, my social conscience, if you do things online, somebody's going to steal your identity. So I guess as meeting planners, we have to think of the both sides of things. We want their data, so if we can give them something in return for that, they would like it, because that's your first answer here, isn't it? More for less.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
similarly,
yeah.
we need to also ensure that there's some little security emblems somewhere, the little padlock somewhere, all of those kind of things that people will know they're not sharing their data with everybody.
Well, you were saying as well in our preview conversation about KLM and how they're doing this kind of, is it meet and seat, where you can kind of choose where you want to sit on a flight, depending on the preferences of other people through their social media, which to me again sounds a little bit too scary. Sometimes I just want to sit on a flight and do nothing. I just want to sit there and not engage with anybody. So,
but if
is that
Mr.
still-
Google was
yeah.
on that plane,
Yeah.
I'd want to sit next to him, for definite. If I could find that was him, I would sit there. If David Beck was on the plane, I'm sitting next to him.
He's driving. He's probably
You know,
He's
these
got
are
his
the
own
people.
plane.
So if you were on a 12-hour flight and you wanted someone to talk to,
Yeah.
Mr. Google's interesting, David Beckham's very interesting,
Yeah.
and, selfies, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. What do you?
The piece about mobile and all that thing, and how you construct events, to what extent are you then mindful during a presentation you've got to allow for that? Because, if everything that you're saying can be distilled down into a 140 character tweet that is then shared, to what extent is a half an hour presentation being, sort of the context is being lost? And on the second part of that is, what actually about social media is, what it has actually fueled is a total and utter egocentricity of the tweeter. So your presentation today isn't about you, it's about how that has then been translated by the journalist in the room or the delegate in the room who's then tweeting out to their followers. It's almost as if they're now the messenger, not you.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of this weird, if I'm tweeting out this particular presentation, I'm telling my followers as some kind of like, oh, well, this has just happened. So it's no longer about you, you're now, the message has now been sort of handed over to somebody else to broadcast.
Yes.
So I was just wondering about how that then changes, how you present, the way you present, the length of your presentation, natural gaps, anything like that. Is that something that we really have to take into consideration?
Yeah. We also have another.
I disagree with that. The only reason is that I think that if your content is interesting enough that they want to share it. I agree that some people could say, hey, look what I'm sending you, but I think it's more about wow, you had such a great presentation. I've got these nuggets. Like personally, I do find things like very interesting and I want to share it with people and say, wow, you really should know about this. This is really hot. Like now, get online, tune in. There's some really great conversations going on. So I would look at it from that respect. But it'd be interesting to see what you have to say.
Does the presenter have to notify their content? Then the desire for the social media person is still something. Do you want to take this for the... We're going to have a debate now, aren't we? Okay, you go. You guys,
Yes.
you guys can leave. We'll carry on.
But isn't that the best thing? What you have just done a live version of
absolutely.
what's happening on Twitter,
Yeah.
what's happening on Facebook, of course, and what happens just generally. And it's about spreading the word of mouth, and you're having a live conversation with each other, but that could also be happening on Twitter, Facebook, happens on Facebook loads of times when you're talking about some exciting event to do. I think, in a way, there is the notions about, especially with the younger generation, with the generation millennials and the generation Y, they do have it seems from the research, they seem to have the ability to be able to be on 3 or 4 platforms at once and still be engaged. And I know as a lecturer as well, I kind of have no frustration with people engaging with their computers and their laptops up. Because if they, again, find something interesting, take something away, there's always been a lot of research. If you listen for an hour, you will only probably remember 5 to 10% of what's been said. So if somebody tweets something, then because of your way you learn by listening, writing, doing. These are the ways that you learn about things. So if they listen, write something, and read it afterwards, then they've actually learnt 3 times, and that's probably better than just the old-fashioned way of listening.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, is there any research in terms of like attention deficit, because they are on multiple platforms, it is a split second here and there, in terms of the deep learning and understanding, is that going to be a decline? And I appreciate what you were saying is like, do you actually then here's your key little nuggets for it, and that's what they're interested in, or do you carry on and go, like, what is the research on that in terms of the understanding of the deeper level of what they're actually getting out of it?
I wish I had a 90%.
Maybe that could be another question.
That's another question for sure. As a lecturer over the years, I haven't found any decline in the level of student engagement and the work that they produce. I actually think it's a little bit harder, because when I do research, I probably spend about a day and a half getting journal articles, getting books, looking at chapters, reading things, because there is so much out there. So I think it's less difficult to be a surface learner now, because there's so much there. So you probably read more, perhaps not as deeply, but, so by the time you've read 20 things about the same thing, it's in there. And so I haven't seen a decline for sure in the attention. No. I know that's anecdotal. Oh yes. Oh yes. Graduates.
Sorry, the question was like, with social media and with instant response to anything you're saying, and with access to the internet and all of its infinitesimal amount of resource. Yes. Are you finding now that you're a lecturer at university, whether students or people at events like this are much more ready to challenge what you're saying, and are much more confident in challenging, and have a much more of a ready well of information with which to challenge you? So in a sense, the lecture has moved from being I'm telling you what you need to know to I'm the starting point of a conversation.
Yeah, I like the idea of calling it the starting point of a conversation. I think that's a lovely expression. I will definitely use that. I will tweet that later for sure. What we cannot do is, which we did to begin with, when there's lots more out there, social media, YouTube videos, even lectures from other organisations, TED Talks, anything like that, there's no way you can include that within your lectures, because that's free. Students pay a lot of money to come to our universities. So if you start bringing in a lot of free stuff, they get annoyed about that because they can see that in their own time. So yes, direct them to those things, but we have to do a different kind of job than we used to do, I think, because of that. And I'm not saying it's harder for us, because it's more enjoyable, because we all like to learn something new every day, but you can't just use free stuff, because why ever would a student pay high fees if all you're giving them is free stuff from somewhere else and not my engagement?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I think the questions, I mean, it's great. We wanted questions. We asked for those at the start of the session and at the start of yesterday as well, because this is all about stimulating debate. So how do people get hold of you? Because I'm sure there's more questions to come, and from you guys as well. What's the best way to get hold of you and ask those questions? And my second question after that is your offer. You had an offer that you want to promote. So, and then we're going to need to close, because Tim Chapman will be coming on next. And he's, do stay with us, of course, because he's talking about the future of hybrid events and what he sees coming around the corner. And it's exactly the kind of thing that we can keep that future theme rolling this morning. So best way of keeping questions, contact with you, what would that be?
I'm on Twitter, so it would be Alex J. Kenyon. I'm also email, which I still hold on to. I hold on to all my gadgets. I don't have a video recorder anymore, but we do have quite a lot of other tech at home. But I'm also a.kenyon@leedsmet.ac.uk. So that's my business email, so I'd be delighted to engage in any way in that way with you. And the research that I have been telling you about today came, as I said at the beginning, through MPI. And so I have we will have to send it out perhaps to those people that are engaged here, because there's a special code.
They're very engaged. This audience is brilliantly engaged, so it's I think they deserve it as well. So you would go up to the website with MPI, and I would give you a code, then you can download the Future of Meetings white paper that we have done. But also we would like you to join MPI's LinkedIn conversation Future of Meetings, because we're quite busy on there as well. Yeah, no, that's great. And if the online folks want to follow that through with you, they can do exactly the same. Contact you and say, look, really enjoyed the session. Of course they would. And basically just then get those details from you. So that is brilliant. Okay. Well, lots of food for thought, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
So that's been really cool. And on behalf of Event Camp Middle East 2014, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Alexandra Kenyon, for being with us today, live from GIBTM in Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre, in the middle of the trade show, trying out some new ideas, coming forwards with some different discussion, and really thinking about the future of the events industry and how we can all play a role to improve that for the success of business and organisations everywhere. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We're just going to connect with Tim Chapman in just a few moments' time. And Tim is going to be joining us live from Melbourne, Victoria. Live from Melbourne, Australia, even. Victoria is a state in Australia, I know that much. So he's on his way. And we're continuing the theme. We're continuing the theme of looking at the future of events with Tim this morning. And he's going to be talking all about the hybrid events. What do we mean by a hybrid event? Well, we're having a hybrid event on right now, which is the online audience plus the on-site participants as well. And Tim's got his ideas on the future of events. And I can see to my right, I can see Tim there. And I think what we're doing, Tim, you are live with us at GIBTM in Abu Dhabi, and I think you should probably be able to hear me in a moment. I'm not sure if he can. He can. I'm getting the thumbs up from the back of the room. So brilliant to see you again, Tim, and to see your slides as well. So everything's working. Isn't this cool? So this is our next remote speaker, who sounds as though he's on a racetrack actually. We're just picking up a little bit of background noise there. That's it. That's just brilliant. That background noise, it sounded like there were a couple of Grand Prix cars going past you there, but sorry, the vacuum cleaner. So, Tim, delighted that you can join us. Tim Chapman is the General Manager of Digital at Staging Connections, based over in Australia. And he and I, we've been having some conversations recently about hybrid events, where they could be going in the future. And that's really what we've asked Tim to talk about with us today. So again, keep the questions coming in. Use the hashtag ECME14. Post up. Use the Facebook page Event Camp Middle East, and share the love of this particular session by going to the by making sure that you're viewing through bit.ly/event CME 14, and then you'll find us. And I'm getting a nod from the back as well, because I tripped over myself with that yesterday when I was putting that forward. I put an apostrophe in there, which wasn't quite right. So Tim, we're ready for you. Delighted that you can join us. So I'm just going to hand over to you, and then I will come back and we'll have some questions. So over to you.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. I'll certainly try and leave enough time at the end to talk about the future, my insights, and the questions from the audience, both in the real world and in the virtual world, which, of course, is fantastic. This is actually a hybrid event, so we're loving it being firsthand. First, a little bit about me, and then I'll introduce the company I'm working for. I've come from a video conferencing background, and what that's done is it's really given me an insight and thrill, if you like, of seeing people communicating face to face. Right back 15 plus years ago, when the equipment was large, it was quite bulky, but just being able to connect two remote places in the world and see each other on TV, you know, that at the time it hailed, oh, that will be the last time we ever fly. We both know that never happened, but the face-to-face meeting is still vitally important, and long live the live event. Obviously, Staging Connections that's what we're all about, is providing the audio visual for a live event. But I really see hybrid events as a natural extension. There's always people that can't turn up. There's always people that would love to be there, and being able to be there at a virtual presence. Bear in mind, the content's always the same. You know, if you're live in the room, you're experiencing the human interaction and the the networking, which is really what we miss when we're watching at a hybrid level. And I'll actually discuss that a little bit more in actual statistics of people turning up versus watching in hybrid land. But let's go to the slide deck, and I'll talk about what we'll see today, and certainly the trends that I'm seeing in the hybrid event space. So as Paul mentioned, General Manager of Digital for Staging Connections, and this has been a very conscious decision by Staging Connections to enter into the digital event space, and not just have a strategy, but actually produce a division that goes together and puts the components of what makes up a hybrid event. So with 750 staff across 75 venues throughout Asia Pacific, our core model is that we are the in-house audio-visual company for many five-star hotels and the majority, of course, in our region. And what this does is it gives us a very good insight into the events that are occurring in our venues and what technology is starting to really enhance that event. We'll see a little bit later that there's a lot of technology out there, but unless it really provides a tangible benefit to both the event organizer and, of course, the client, it tends to get lost. So what we're seeing is some good trends on the real products that are helping an event organizer, and then making the client happy because they're getting the engagement and the interactivity that they're after. So yeah, being in-house has really given us some great insight. We're the largest AV company in the region, so we're often the first to market with new technologies. So we're the pioneers in a lot of respect in trying new technology, and have actively been promoting hybrid events since 2010. We're actually hailed as one of the most advanced webcasting platforms that we built. When I came on board in 2012, we put together a webcast platform not only to be able to stream live video with slides, but also bring in that interactivity, almost replicate the live experience of what people are doing in the venue, in the room. And we're actually one of the first, well, in Australia, we were the first AV company to sell and promote an event app. We actually went down a path of manufacturing our own, and we soon realised that area is leapfrogging in technology so quickly. Like the new features that are coming in to event apps these days is almost mind-blowing. So we realised that to stay at the forefront and offer our client the best product, we needed to be with the strength there and go with a global leading app. And very happy to say that Show Gizmo, which you've heard a lot about, and is the actual app of this event, we're promoting that app very heavily down here in Australia. So they're a great partner to have. So let's have a quick look now at the next slide, which is what we're going to cover today. And what we'd like to do is look at what the key components are in making up a hybrid event. What challenges have we experienced over the last few years? And that's quite interesting because that has a direct correlation to how quick hybrid event uptake has been. And all different regions are at different stages of IT development and the adoption of hybrid events. And maybe some of our learnings can really assist in helping other regions move forward. The benefits of adding a hybrid component, and who are actually the main drivers in the future uptake. We all realise that hybrid events are now here to stay. That the adoption of technology as it gets easier and better priced, we'll see more and more use of it. But what are the main drivers that will get that across the line? And the strategy for mass adoption. We're still, in my opinion, at the infancy in the fact that these technologies are just starting to get used. And a hybrid event isn't necessarily the use of all technology. It is just one component that assists in allowing someone outside the live room to feel a part of that conference. So that can be a webcast, it can be a Skype speaker coming in at one point, it can be an event app, the list goes on. But we want to look at what drives mass adoption. And then we have a bit of fun with a crystal ball. Where do I personally and a lot of my industry peers, where do we feel hybrid events will look like in a few short years? So just before we get on to that, I just wanted to actually do a definition of the hybrid event. And the first definition you see has actually come from Wikipedia. Hybrid event being a trade show, conference, unconference, which you may have heard of more regularly recently, seminar, workshop or other meeting that combines a live in-person event with a virtual online component. And the staging connections definition, if you like, is extending the reach of a live event to a virtual audience using our digital event services. And quite interestingly, and I'll just hop in and come to you and just talk to you about the next point, is you may have seen a Toyota Prius on the image there. Well, a hybrid event isn't necessarily a group of people inside a Toyota Prius having a meeting, although it could be. But the reason why that's up there is the first time we actually came across hybrid for a lot of us was in the commercial market when it came to vehicles. And I've got a little bit of an analogy there. Of course, that car is put together with a with an electric engine and a petrol motor. And what, by combining those two together, the car obviously moves forward. Now, if that petrol runs out, it's not over. There's still an electric motor that can drive that car further. And the way I see it is the live people, you in the room in the live venue, you're the petrol of the meeting. You're really pulling it together, driving the wheels of the event, and when you break for lunch and morning tea, you're the one discussing everything. In the virtual world, we're the electric motor, if you like, because we're the hybrid group that's put together longevity of the event. So after the event, there's the on-demand version that keeps going. There's the tweets, there's the social interaction, there's the meeting each other on event apps. And that, as I see it, is the electric part of an event, if you like, where it's not too dissimilar between a hybrid car and a hybrid event. So that's a little area I thought is quite interesting in that it is actually quite similar. So the components, let's briefly look at what makes up the components. For us, one of the most important things, of course, is webcasting. It's the visual capability of seeing someone live, and of course the slides, but it's also the live chat, the Q&A that can come direct to me as a speaker, the live polling of the audience and asking their response and questions, social media feeds, active links to the sponsors, and of course banner advertising as monetization starts to weigh a heavy part of hybrid events. And one which I think is absolutely vital and it tends to get skipped over at times is the quality audio visual. Obviously, being an AV company, we understand the benefits of correct lighting, a nice background so that someone in a black suit with a black drape just doesn't look like a moving head. Good quality AV, vision switching, microphones that are readily available for Q&A sessions. All these are put together to create a broadcast quality hybrid event. When people first come onto a hybrid event, if they see very scratchy video and the appearance is not of high quality, you'll actually lose a lot of your audience. Whereas if you're looking at cameras that are vision switching, close-ups, nice headshots, going out to a wide pan of the audience, and something that sort of mirrors the television world, then you're more inclined to watch that for a lot longer. And we're really seeing some uptake into the YouTube, Facebook, and corporate YouTube, as I call it, in the fact that is a very easy way of getting your live message out. And it can also coincide with a product launch or something similar, where if you've got your products and services already on your website, why not iframe into that website and have your live stream? And whilst the people have arrived 5 or 10 minutes earlier, they're exploring your website at the end, they may do the same. If it's on Facebook, they're actually looking at your whole Facebook presence, and it is a very easy way to do live streaming, is to use that medium. And it is a growth factor for sure. Event apps, we've seen them, we've used them. Of course, there's one at Event Camp, and this is such an easy way of connecting with people, seeing who's there. If you're anything like me, before I get there, I want to maximise my time. I want to know which exhibitors, which attendees that I've already messaged to say, love to have a coffee. If it's something of interest, a particular speaker, setting capability, so that I know throughout that whole day who I'm going to meet, what exhibitors I'm going to see, and what speaker sessions I'm going to go to. And there's no better way of doing that than an event app, because of course it's dynamic, it's updated, and in our little crystal ball we'll actually look at a few things where I think event apps are going. The live polling, out of any particular product that we have in our hybrid event components, this is our largest growth at the moment, in the fact that people love having their say. We really are embracing and adopting interaction at events. And people come in, they have their say, even if it's just voting on on a particular question or an opinion, they've walked away feeling that they've been part of the event. They've managed to actually consider themselves a part of the event rather than just a spectator. And of course, social media feeds. We love those. We're using them today. Photo and video uploads, event displays, and of course, very importantly, moderation. And we've designed at Staging Connections a group of tools that we put together that always have a moderation capability, because we certainly don't want anything going to screen that would detract from the conference. And of course, always trying to keep both the content, the speakers, and the social aspect on trend. Virtual speakers like I am today. Here I am over Skype, all the way in Abu Dhabi from Melbourne. And I don't think there's an easier way. Of course, the commercial side of this is I'm coming to you for free. And that's a well-known fact, that Skype is a readily available tool to be able to come into any environment. So that's certainly the key components. The challenges, and we won't dwell too long on this because a lot of them are being eliminated. The IT infrastructure restraints at the venue and the viewer locations. We all understand bandwidth is getting better over time. Fibre optic and new cable being laid in many areas has meant that you've gone from ADSL now to much higher bandwidths. And we heard yesterday about Wi-Fi and IT challenges. We in Australia, in our region in Asia Pacific, most particularly, we're seeing massive leaps. So a venue, a big hotel, is actually proud of the fact now that they can give you dedicated bandwidth with a big uplink to be able to webcast and produce a hybrid event, along with much larger download capability for event apps and any people actually using their iPads and computers for live streaming. There hasn't been a lot of meaningful education, and this is what Event Camp's all about. We want to get the message out about the technology, but most importantly, how it can benefit. Just talking about the technology is not enough. We need to tell people what the benefits are of that technology. And I open my door at that fact. You know, if you want to email me, I actually have a lot of first-hand experience on being able to teach the benefits of a hybrid event. There's always been a fear that isn't it just one more thing that can go wrong? I don't think so. We've got to a point now where cloud-based technology and certainly the IT infrastructure, we've got past that stage where it's not a wing and a prayer anymore. It's a very much an isolated occasion that something would go wrong at a hybrid level. A lot of people haven't budgeted for it, and that's true. You know, it's their first introduction to hybrid technology. But what we say to them is okay, baby steps, if you like. If you haven't budgeted, at least let's look at just live polling or just using an event app. Or maybe we do an event record and we do it live next year. But it's planting the seed and making sure that the clients and the event organisers understand that this is a growing market and they should be looking at it for, if not this year, certainly for their next event budget. Free venue Wi-Fi, a good colleague yesterday did cover that very well. So it's a fast-growing inclusion. It's happy days when I read some of our industry magazines and all of a sudden a hotel chain has announced that it's free Wi-Fi for the conferences. It's always a woohoo moment when I see that. And I think I'll wait and see if this hybrid thing's really going to take off or gain traction. Well, that's reducing heavily. It has taken off. People are embracing it. And not only have they used it, they're doing it again because it has benefited the event to be able to be watched later. People arriving new into a company, it's almost part of an induction now to watch the previous few events so that they can understand where the company's been and where it's heading. And I certainly, this is probably the next question that I get asked the most out of anything. If I choose to make my event hybrid, will that affect my live attendee numbers? I'm happy to say, after 2 years of research, and there's finally some statistics that have come out over that, and I will read the statistic to you just so I get it absolutely correct. And what's occurred is, of the first-time virtual attendees, 53% indicated that they would be interested in attending the next event in person, and that's vital. In that it's a toe in the water. It's an experience of actually looking at the event for the first time, and they do miss the human interaction. That's why 53% go to the next event, because we go off to a lovely lunch, they go to the fridge, open it up, and exactly the same stuff's in there. So we do enjoy that live interaction, and it's important to know that it doesn't reduce the number of the live attendees, it actually increases it for the following event. So let's look at the benefits, and creating a global reach, of course, is one of the most vital parts. It introduces the attendee, just like we mentioned, so that it's more likely they'll attend the next event in a live. The additional branding opportunities for sponsors and monetisation. If there was any benefit that we really needed to put forward, it's the monetisation side, in that people now are realising that we can make money out of a hybrid event. That's a very powerful statement. If you had a webcast sponsor and people paying to watch, you could actually make money from the hybrid component. Interactivity and social media feeds are obviously very important, and the real-time feedback. As I mentioned, they love being able to feel that they've walked away having put some input into the event, even if it's just a live poll. And the database, you've actually got a much larger database at the end of the day, not only the live people, but also the people that have watched at a hybrid level. So the IT challenge has improved rapidly. With better bandwidth, we've got better quality video quality, and we're seeing now throughout the range to the 4K model is pretty much what used to be a standard definition video. For the same bandwidth these days, we now have high definition. So that's really increasing the engagement, because we're starting to watch a much better quality video, and it's only going to get better. As compression gets better, so does the image.
Hi Tim, I'm just going to butt in right there. I'm sorry to cut you off in mid-flow, but I think what we'd like to do is to take you to full screen, if you don't mind. And yes. I've got a couple of questions that have been coming in from the online audience, plus also, the online participants, and also from people in the room here as well. So really great food for thought in all that you said there. I'm a big advocate, as you know, of hybrid events. I think they're really interesting. I was asking some people what the feeling was like of seeing you as a remote speaker. Well, I still don't like that word remote, by the way. It still doesn't make us all warm and fuzzy. So I'll change it to something else. Haven't kind of got the right word yet. But one of the chaps I was speaking to, he said, yeah, it's a little different, but I'm getting used to it. And I think if we do the kind of questions and answers where we can see you, they can see me, and I can mix that up, I think that seems to have been the real popular trend that we found over the last day and a half of doing event camp here in the Middle East at GIBTM. So that's interesting, and I mean, maybe that's something that we take away as a lesson from this. But one of the questions from our web streaming chap, Martin Shepherdley, who's doing a great job, was all around your point on charging for content. Because do we think that because we've got used to the web, there's information on it, it's free, do you actually think that we're going to start seeing more of a charge for information that's on the web? Because if it isn't charged for, then it doesn't have the value. Do you see that coming through in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, it's early days in monetisation, and the reason for that is that it's at a perceived value, but it's been hard to work out a direct formula on if someone's paying $1,000 to attend the event live, what sort of money do we put on the hybrid component because at the end of the day, they're receiving the same content, but just in a virtual world.
Yeah.
The big thing is the catering, the room hire, all the things that actually go into creating an event for the live individual. There's a lot more inherent cost to having that person in the room. And at a virtual level, the difficulty is you don't want to make it too cheap, because then you will actually affect the experience of the people saying, oh, well, if it's only 1/10 of the price of the live event, then maybe that's not enough money. It needs to be half the price or 25%. So what I'm seeing is various different types of events having a play with the monetisation side. A real world example is a government department. Because the content was so pertinent to a particular part of the Australian government, the room was full. It had sold out, and they actually went to market with what I thought at the time, quite an expensive price to view the content over the 2-day symposium. The uptake was excellent, and they made a lot of money on the hybrid component.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you for that. I'm just picking up Marie-Claire Andrews has just come on, as we know, from Show Gizmo, and she's just tweeted in to say 53% of first-time virtual attendees. So she's picked up on what you were saying about people looking at an event and enjoying it online and then deciding they're going to go and see the real live event later on. And that's been our experience as well. And she agrees with me as well that we do need a better word for remote speakers. And she's saying there's ain't nothing remote about Tim, which is really quite nice. So, yeah, it's very true as well. But you are with us in the room here in Abu Dhabi at GIBTM. We're in the middle of the show floor. You're also around the globe. And long after today, the content will be circulated so that people can come in and ask questions. What would be the best way that people could contact you with any further questions? I know they can go through the Show Gizmo app, but if they want to email you directly, is that okay? Twitter handle?
Yes.
What's your best means?
Yeah, email's great, because I've got all the tools of my trade in the office. I can cut and paste various bits out of articles and things depending on the question. So the last page of my presentation, and I'm imagining you'll make that available to all the viewers.
Oh, we certainly will, yeah.
Has my email address on it, tim.chapman@scgl.com.au. So if you want to contact me directly, I'm very happy to discuss the content that we've covered today.
No,
Did you want a 30-second crystal ball on where we're going to go?
A 30-second crystal ball. Yeah, I'm getting lots of nods from the audience here. They want to know 30 seconds of what you see in the crystal ball, Tim. That'll be great.
All right, well, I'll just go
apparently
back to my
they've got their devices out here, Tim. They're going to time you as well, so no pressure, eh?
I'll just go back to my slide very quickly, and then I'll finish off full screen head again. So
yeah, that'll be fabulous. So you're not remote at all. You're there. We can see you.
That's right. Just as I'm getting to that slide, it's the younger generation that's really going to push this, and things like Event Camp and, of course, the AV companies like Staging Connections that are constantly talking about hybrid events and the components. So let's do the 30 seconds.
The 30 seconds, right. Megan McLeod, I have to tell you, I don't know if you know Megan, but she's definitely got the stopwatch out right now. So
okay. Google Glass, we've heard about it. What's it going to do for us? For me, it's the easy check-in. When you arrive at an event, it's just like a zzz, scanned, in you go. But also, whilst in the event, captions for hard of hearing. You could see the slides internally, and also translation into many languages. Once you're at a networking function, you could push, gather, or transfer information. That could be your LinkedIn profiles and such like. Smartwatches are interesting to me because it is a connected device, but because the real estate's so small, it's going to be difficult to know where that's going to find its niche. Certainly as a video recorder and playback device, I could see slides on the watch, but also event apps and the ability to do live polling it is a connected device, no doubt. So some people argue with me, well, if you've got a smartwatch and a smartphone, the smartphone's got a bigger screen, why wouldn't you use that? So we'll see where that ends up, but we will definitely be video conferencing each other on a watch. I know that's going to happen. iBeacons, and I don't want to steal Show Gizmo's thunder, but we're so
iBeacons,
excited about that. In the fact that Show Gizmo is the first event app to actually have an iBeacon as part of it. And that, of course, means that as I'm walking through an exhibition, I've already done my business matchmaking. I want to hear about event apps and webcasting. As I walk past an exhibitor, they're going to push me that info. And to finish, WebRTC is probably the biggest game changer in our industry. And what WebRTC is it actually allows us to communicate with each other face-to-face on a web application or a website. So that's going to be a big game changer for us.
Brilliant. Tim Chapman from Staging Connections over in Australia, we thank you for joining us at Event Camp Middle East 2014, coming live from GIBTM at Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre. Thank you so much. And you're getting a big round of applause from the crowd here. Well,
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. I can hear it all the way from Melbourne.
So that was Tim Chapman. He was our speaker this morning on the future of hybrid events. Do stay with us because come back to us actually at 3 o'clock this afternoon, Abu Dhabi time. We've got Graham Jones. He's going to be talking about social media tools and how you can use those to build your community. Straight after him, we've got Brand Kruger, who's talking about tech trends and event technology, and he is a mine of information, just as Graham is on his subject. And then we've got another massive subject matter expert who is Ian Brodie, and he's going to be talking about engagement and what we can do with some of the content that's been created to keep the conversation going. So 3 speakers all lined up, again being beamed in from different parts of the globe, which is fantastic. So keep following us, keep making your comments. It's great to see them come on a Twitter stream, hashtag ECME14. And if you go to the Facebook page, it's Event Camp Middle East, Event Camp Middle East actually on Facebook. And Instagram, anything you put on there, again, use the hashtag ECME14, and then that will appear in the stream. My thanks again this morning to Martin Shepherdley from Be There Global, from making the streaming, taking the content outside of this room, and to Anton from Newman and Muller, who are doing all the audio visual for us at the back of the room here, making sure this all works and sounds great, and it does. And to Dr. Alexandra Kenyon, even if I put my teeth in, who was talking with us earlier about the future of events, and she got a lot of discussion. So keep on sending your questions in. Make sure that you do spread the love, and to view any of this, go to bit.ly/ly/event CME14, and that's where you'll be able to show other people exactly what you're tuning into. But join the conversation, use the Show Gizmo apps, and then you will have everything in the same space, and that could be a good way of retrieving information after this event. So my name, Paul Cook from Planet Biz, and I'm just signing off now to make way for a conference that's coming in here for an hour or so, and then but we will be back to you from this very spot at 3 o'clock Abu Dhabi time this afternoon, 25th of March. Thanks for now. date today? 25th of March,
Yeah.
Well, just tell me, if I've got this hand here.
25th, day 2.
So,
In Abu Dhabi.
I hope Alex comes back by 11 o'clock. My name is Paul Cook from Planet, and I welcome you to Event Camp Middle East 2014, Day 2. Day 1, that was yesterday. That was the 24th of March. Today is the 25th of March, and here we are with another set of speakers all raring to go to share their latest thinking about what could be different in the events industry. They're going to share some expertise, have some different ways of looking at the industry for the benefit of everybody. And that's really what an event camp is all about. The event camp is a volunteer-led. Is it a volunteer-led body? No, actually, event camps are put on by volunteers that want to try something new for the events industry as a whole. So they get together, and in this particular edition of Event Camp Middle East 2014, on screen, and we had a lot of fun there. Bearing in mind that he couldn't see us, that was a really interesting part of yesterday. Then we moved from Alan and we went across to Mike Clanton, who was talking about connectivity. So if you don't have the connectivity right in your venue, in your space, are the delegates going to be able to load up their appliances in the right way? Are they going to get connected? Are they going to be upset if they cannot get that connection? So those were some of the people that we had on. And then we finally finished with Kirsha Woodgate from Mexia Communications. And basically she was talking about how to market your online or your hybrid event. What are the techniques? What are some of the secrets that you need to be aware of that are really going to make a difference? Because do you apply the same techniques as for a traditional event or not? So we put those questions to her, and we're going to have this available. If you missed yesterday, then you will be able to catch this in the on-demand area, and we will be letting you have details of that a little bit later on. So the best way to get involved in an event camp is to join in the conversation. You may agree or disagree with some of the statements, and that's absolutely fine, but we want your opinion. Our speakers have been asked to be provocative, and they have been doing that yesterday, and they will do that again today as well. We've got some speakers today. Tim Chapman is our first speaker our first remote speaker actually. He's coming in from Australia, and then later we have Graham Jones from the UK. We have Brand Kruger from the States, and then we finish with Ian Brody, also from the UK. So all of those speakers are coming in remotely. There's only one person I'm going to be interviewing live in a few moments' time, and that will be Dr. Alex Kenyon. So we're going to have a chat shortly about the future of events. So a lot for you to take on board, a lot of good stuff that's going on. But do join us. Join the Twitter stream. Use the hashtag #ECME14, and you can post up your comments. You can say hello. I know where I am. I'm in Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre right now, and outside it is gorgeous. Well, like every day here, actually, it's gorgeous blue sky, and it is really, really nice in terms of the temperature. We are late 20s, early 30 degrees temperature. So we have a skeleton crew. There's myself as your host for the rest of today. I did a bit of hosting yesterday as well, hosting for the live audience here and the live audience online as well, delegates rather, not audience, because we want you to participate. I have Martin Shefwoodley from Be There Global, and basically he is doing all the web streaming, making sure that all of the content goes outside of the room. And he's sitting next to Anton from Newman and Muller, and they've been providing the audio visual for us all yesterday and again all today. And without them, we wouldn't be able to make this event camp work. And behind the scenes, we have Josh Dry and Mary Claire Andrews, who are basically, they've been doing a lot of promotion behind the scenes, and also they've created an event app specifically for Event Camp. So this is where you can go and find all the latest information on the speakers. You can find out their bios, you can score them, you can message them, you can do all of that. And basically you've got everything about Event Camp Middle East 2014 in one spot. The furniture around me has been provided by Catertainment, and they've provided all of these beanbags, these lanterns, and some other items that give us a real camp in the middle of the desert feel. Because this Middle Eastern edition is coming to you live from GIBTM, which is one of the Reed travel exhibition shows. And this is our second time of being here. So it's the 8th year that Reed have been here with GIBTM, but it's our second year. They asked us to come back after 2013, and that was just fabulous. So we've been invited back a second time, and delighted to be here. They provided the space, and their team have been brilliant in terms of marketing and helping make this a success. So a big shout out to them, to Abby Cannons, to Susanna Lee, and to all of the other people behind the working of this. And so yeah, yesterday, a little bit about yesterday, we had Josh Dry. He was speaking to us about event apps in the morning. He started off, he was over in New Zealand. Then we switched to Shauna McKinley, who was over in Vancouver, Canada, and she was talking about sustainability and hybrid event intersections. Where do those two meet? From there, we went from Canada to London, and we had a Training Your Virtual Speaker with Alan Stevens, and we did a question and answer session, so I interviewed him